Greetings, everyone. You have arrived at Optimize Her Too right here on YouTube. And I'm here tonight, May 26th, 2026. That's got a really cool ring to it, doesn't it, Quincy?
It does.
And you have
5/26/26.
reached here on YouTube. Barbara E. Ringrose. I'm the founder of Wow Women Optimizing Women, co-creator here of Optimize Her Too, along with LaQuincia Nichols of experiencecoaching.com. She's the founder of her business. I'm the founder of Wow Women Optimizing Women. And we wanted to join you today live to talk to you about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because I've been doing quite a bit of this lately, and that's traveling. And
Yes.
I have a question for you, Quincy. Pat, and a statement of all things that I think people don't really think about in too much detail until the situation happens to them. But packed bags sometimes can mean hidden tensions. The truth about traveling with friends. And we all
Mm.
have done that before.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's one of those situations where when you start planning the trip, I think when all of us get down to it, we don't necessarily think about the things that could go wrong. We're just so excited about what's going to happen. And we're going to navigate everyone through some experiences and so forth. But I think the important thing is to take a look at yourself, the people that you're inviting.
Yeah. I think
You're
all
going
those
to
things
say,
matter to having a rich and robust experience that also meets the expectations that you're looking for as well, right?
yeah, yeah, you say what yes to the beach because you didn't want to lose your girlfriend, right? But
Right.
by day two, here we are, and you're arguing
Oh,
about the sleep schedules and money, and you realize you didn't ask the right question.
welcome to my world.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to my world is, and I think it's why, a tagline that I talk about a lot is stop assuming, start asking, get results, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's because oftentimes we believe that we're all talking the same language or we all want to have a similar experience because maybe we all want to go to the same place. But the time that I may like to have dinner could be very different for you. You might be an early riser. I might be a late night type person. There are all these like nuances that sometimes you don't really understand until you do it. And so I get when people say online, you never really know who your friends are until you go on vacation with each other because sometimes these friend groups just are disruptive by the time they return. But I do think with clear communications and honest expectations, it can allow for a smoother experience for everyone.
There's just
Oh,
so much
yes.
excitement, even for a long weekend. You know, quick backstory here.
Yeah.
So, for some of you, this may resonate, and this is going to sound really familiar here, but your childhood best friend, let's say Jess, we were inseparable through middle school. You know, the girl that I'm talking about. We all have those friends,
Mm.
and you did everything together. And then she goes and texts me last year and says, "Hey, why don't we get together and we go to the beach house in July? Does that sound good for you?" So you're all a whole year out. And before you say yes, before you even think about the flights, the budget, or even talk about any other details, the sunscreen, we think about things
Hmm.
like that. But then we have these issues that come about and just so far away from what we originally thought about that simple trip to the beach house.
Right, right. And I think sometimes the beach house can represent different types of vacation for some people. The beach house could represent complete relaxation. I want to sit on the beach, put my toes in the sand and
Mm.
relax. And for some other people, it could be, I want to do every water activity available and have a jam-packed itinerary. And I think for me, I fall somewhere in the middle. I like a little bit of an itinerary, but I don't want my vacation to feel like work. And when they start to feel like work is when I start to mentally tap out or start creating my own plans and say, I need some self time on that vacation, which I know some people as well are challenged with as well. What are your thoughts, Barb, when you're on a group vacation, right? Do you take those moments to carve out time and space just for yourself, or are you with the group all the time?
I think it's important to do a little bit of everything. And I had a friend who it was almost like we joked about it. Every 15 minutes, we had something planned. And that was bizarre. And everything was planned around breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mm,
And I like to fly by the seat of my pants sometimes. You know, I like an
yeah,
itinerary, I like some schedule. But if you've ever booked a trip, and you've been nostalgic about these trips. Some people you mentioned they want to do everything. Well, you didn't talk about the money piece, you
right,
know, and the next thing you know, you're shifting your friendship. You're feeling like you're not being loyal to your friend, but at the same time, you know,
right.
this
Because
what
that
we're
can
going to
be tough.
discuss is exactly for you. If you've ever had this kind of problem when you've scheduled a trip, these are the kind of things that come about. We'll help you get through and navigate through some of this.
Yeah, and maintain the relationship, right? Because you want to remember the reason why you invited this person to go on vacation with you on the in the first place, right? You wanted to
Hmm.
have some care and connection with them, and you would hope that both with vacation you can return in that same manner.
Yeah, it can be risky
Mhm.
because there may be one person, for instance, I did a recent trip where I co-created the itinerary and it was a pretty
Okay.
intense one. But sometimes it's just that one person who's controlling everything. And some people have different sleep patterns, some people maybe have some different food preferences. You know, a lot of people they have gluten issues or
Mhm.
they're vegetarians. There are so many different things to think about when you're selecting restaurants, or maybe you're shopping at a local market
Oh,
when you're
yes.
going on vacation. These are the things that you need to talk about. I think some of the time, the money piece is a little bit silent. We don't
Sure.
talk about the money. And then the next thing you know, you may even have a little squabble along the way, and that may keep it a little bit off kilter. It might set the tone
Mhm.
for the trip from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Because also, I think a part of that piece about being transparent in terms of it's not about having to go over your entire budget with someone for a vacation,
Yeah,
but it is about setting sort of expectations, right? When we talk about dinner, are we talking about grabbing something quick to go, or are we talking about, a five-star dinner every night? That could be a very different price point for people. And for some people, they may not really enjoy the experience of having to get dressed up after being out all day. It reminds me, sometimes when you think about when I first started going on vacations, I loved going on cruises, maybe about 15 years ago, right? And you could always do the formal dinner where you had to dress up, or you could find very similar things, in the buffet area. And I think there's both are presented because they both offer value. But if we don't talk about what are our dinner expectations, then we may have a lot of misalignment, miscommunication, unsaid communication. And then that breeds into some of these resentment or disagreements as you talk about.
budget mismatch where
Hmm.
somebody has those expectations of the high-end dinners, like, some family members I have that wanna have that high-end dinner
Sure, that
every night
experience. Yeah.
where you're sitting there for 2 or 3 hours and they're drinking bottles after wine, and you're just sitting there thinking, "When will this dinner be over?"
Right.
And other people, they're so content with just eating tuna out of a can.
Mhm. And I can do both. I just need to be sort of set my expectations on what's gonna happen. If we are sort of doing a walking tour, walking around the city, a can of tuna will go you a long way for the protein and the nutrition and all that. But on the other end, if I'm someone who's sitting at a dinner and, it is the dinner experience that is a couple of hours and there's, cocktails or wine, whatever that may be. But what if I'm
Right?
someone who doesn't partake in that, right? So that's not really a good environment for me. So being able to, I think, also be aware of the people who you're going on vacation with and do they match the vibe? I hate to say it, right? The vibe that you're
Mhm.
trying to curate in this group because it may be for a certain group of friends or it may be for a different group of friends just depending on what is sort of the standard that they're used to experiencing on vacations or just regular dinners in their everyday life. If they like to go out to a nice premier restaurant, quarterly is what we try to do in my home, then that wouldn't be such a shock, but we do just like to know in advance, right?
Let's do a little role play. You know how you
Yeah.
do role play, like, when you're at work and you're
Uh-huh.
one person and somebody's the other person, you kinda go back
Absolutely.
and forth a little bit. How about if we do a little bit of
Let's
role
do
play?
it.
We were talking about
Role play
doing
in
that
action.
together.
Hmm.
You can be Aisha,
Okay.
and I'll be myself.
All right.
what about like three common threads and maybe show some better alternatives?
Sure. Barb, we're getting ready to think about dinner. Is there something in particular you would like to eat tonight?
Well, I'm thinking that maybe we ought to go out to that nice restaurant we saw down the road and remember the one? And I don't know if they need reservations.
I'll take a look and see if they require any reservation. Is there a time in which you would prefer to eat?
Well, I tell you what, that's a little bit of an issue because we did have a late lunch.
You want to maybe move to a late dinner? How's 7
I
o'clock for
think that's
you?
a real good idea. I think that's a good idea. Let's go and see if we can use Open Table or one of those apps to make reservations. I'd
Oh,
love to
yeah.
sit outside on the veranda. It looked like a beautiful view.
I like that idea too. So maybe we'll do that restaurant down the street. We'll look on Open Table to see if they have a 7 o'clock reservation available. If by chance they're booked, are you okay eating later since we had a late lunch? Maybe if they have an 8 o'clock, or do you want to look for a different restaurant?
You know what? I think we ought to have the alternative because we need a plan B. So many times on the trips that I've gone to before, we didn't have a plan B, and then we didn't set the right, like you said, expectation, and we were both disappointed. So yeah, let's look at a plan B just in case.
Excellent, excellent. So how about this? I will focus on taking care of our primary reservation that we'll look to do at around 7 o'clock at the restaurant down the way. But how about you have also the opportunity to look for our backup restaurant? So that way we're sharing some of this responsibility. How's that for you, Barb?
That sounds amazing. And we need to make sure that it's in the right budget too, because I don't want to spend too much money. And you know how expensive some wines can be. And
Yeah,
I like
you're
drinking
right.
my wine.
I know you like your wine, so let's do this. I know on Open Table, I think they can categorize the restaurants between like $1 and $4 signs. So maybe we stick around between $2 and $3 signs. How's that?
Okay. Sounds
Perfect.
good. Sounds
Excellent.
good. And that's one of the things that you wanna do. You want to, as you're talking to your friends, you wanna be able to have, set the right expectations. You can do that all day long, but things just happen, whether it's a reservation, it's a restaurant that maybe doesn't even offer reservations, and then having a plan B to your
Hmm.
plan A. That was a good one for us too, Quincy.
Good both
So,
ways. And
money
let me,
mismatch.
I want to share one thing with that too. I think one of the key things was when you're in those conversations, right? And someone
Right?
is asking for your opinion, you got to share it. Right? Don't
So
just
important.
respond with everything. It's our anything. It doesn't matter, whatever you pick. Then that puts so much responsibility on that other person without any direction. And that doesn't feel fair.
That's a really good, key point. And, before you book anything, even if you're booking a museum or a excursion, if you're thinking
Hmm.
about doing something, that money mismatch even starts when you start thinking about a place that you want to stay, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because, some people may be, well, here's the thing. Even if we back up before then, how are we getting there? Right? Are we all on the same flight? Are we all flying
Yeah, we
first
gotta
class,
think about
business, right? Do we wanna go together? Because sometimes all these things can set up what could be, right? When I think about my world, potential conflict, right? Where people start to avoid some of wanting to make some of these decisions. But I think if you can just set the like when we get to the airport, if I have TSA pre-check or clear and you don't, do you want me to wait in line with you? Is it
oh,
something
that's
you're
a
willing
real
to
good
get?
global entry.
Right? All
Yes,
of those things. It could because
yes.
some of us pay to have a swifter and easier airport experience, right? And I'm going to prioritize that because that makes my vacation start out on the right note, right? So even for me, it starts at the beginning of let's talk about our airport experience.
So many times people talk about sharing the rent evenly.
Mm,
Well, that's something important to think about because depending on your accommodations, sometimes the room sizes, sometimes what's available in that unit, for instance, one bedroom may have, let's say, a bathroom, but figuring out how you're going to split that rent too when you get
right.
there, it can be extremely different. And you may have different taxes so maybe one person is paying and charging the rent, on their credit card,
Mhm.
and everyone then has to pay them up. And talk about that up front too, how you want that delivered. Is a check okay? Do you want to Zelle?
Right.
Or do you want somebody, yeah, how are you gonna handle that?
And because here's the thing, a lot of people often push it off saying, oh, well, we can figure it out later. But guess what?
Oh,
Having the conversation later is going to be even more awkward than having the conversation up front, right? And if we can
yeah.
align up front, that allows for everyone involved to make sure they're very clear on what the expectations are, where you should be contributing, or if you're going to own a certain part of the cost of the trip. Because after everything is said and done, everyone's had their wonderful time, everyone's coming back to whatever bills they accumulated on their own. Having that conversation now, a couple weeks later, it's going to be even messier, right? Where it's going to be a lot more gray in terms of what did we discuss and who ordered that third bottle of wine versus I only wanted a glass. All those things get mixed up sometimes.
Something too, especially if you're traveling abroad, you need to make sure that you're thinking about euros. Don't wait 3 days before you're
Hmm.
leaving when you're talking about paying. And I would highly recommend, if you're traveling abroad, to take a look and find out what that currency is. So
Yes.
if you are splitting things evenly, like the rent sometimes for let's say a villa might be
Hmm.
different than an apartment in a major city. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to the due dates of when those monies are due so that you can split those funds prior to the actual debit of a credit card of
Right.
whoever is going to handle that. And you talk about wine. Some people don't drink.
Right.
So if, let's say, you are in a restaurant, you need to talk about that in advance because splitting the bill evenly at the dinner table
Never
isn't
happens.
necessarily evening, even if I'm not drinking that particular night, but you're drinking a whole bottle of wine. So, and that could cause a little bit of friction.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where you have to be honest about because to that point, right? I sit down and table with you. I know you're gonna enjoy a glass of wine. I'm gonna enjoy a
Hmm.
margarita, right? Because that's just what I
Yeah.
like, or some other type of cocktail, because
Right.
that's what I prefer to drink over wine. So I think even just having a sort of, maybe we do a shared cost in terms of like, the table and for food, but it may be individual in terms of what did I consume for alcohol or liquor. And those are just all I think all things you just cannot kind of be honest with, but also, if you are familiar with the people with whom you're traveling with, you've had relationships with them, you probably sat down and, broken bread or went to a restaurant with each other before. Sometimes you can get that feel, but if it's someone you don't know, these are things that you really do need to bring clarity to.
Yeah, it's always nice to meet people, but then when you're living with them and you have too many packed days end on end, that can
Hmm.
create a bit of stress, can it?
Oh,
So
yes.
that to have like a down day, depending on how long the trip is, or a half
Absolutely.
day, couple hours, so everybody can kind of like just regroup
Mhm.
and because it can be a vacation or a adventure.
Yes,
Sometimes these trips are more like adventures than they are vacations because you
I think
almost need a
so.
vacation when you come back from the
The
trip.
vacation from the vacation, right, is always necessary. I say those
Oh
always those,
god,
those
yeah.
first 1 to 2 days of reentry can always be a challenge, and I think even having, some time in your schedule for you to sort of reintegrate into your daily life before hopefully you can move back into your professional life. The younger gal I was could, go on vacation, go back to work on Monday morning, and no big deal. Now I need that sort of Monday at home to decompress from the trip. Tuesday to sort of get my mind right. Okay, Wednesday, maybe now I'm ready to start doing the things in a way that can be impactful. But it is also a challenge when you are in sort of this sort of go, go, go mode in your
Yeah.
vacation. And if when you don't build in those days, it starts to feel like a chore. And a part of that vacation should be able to provide you a little bit of relaxation and reset. And that comes in however it is that you find to be relaxing and resetting. And if that is adventurous things, and a lot of experiences, I think also just holding space for those who may need a different way to recharge. And for me, sometimes that is being very quiet and maybe putting in my AirPods and, listening to a book or just, listening to some music because sometimes you're taking in so much when you're on vacation.
So sometimes you're mixing groups of people. Like
Yes.
you may have that childhood bestie, and then
Right.
you've got that associate that you work with. the dynamics of the associate that you work with can be so completely different than that best friend. And you love them both. You love them both.
Mhm.
You think you highly respect them. It's just, you think this is an opportunity of a lifetime for you to blend those friends. But sometimes, for instance, one girl might be like Miss Efficiency and
Mhm.
have these curated experiences, and then your childhood friends, she may just like to be like the practical jokester.
Mhm.
And sometimes those kind of combinations cause a little bit of friction along the way.
But you're absolutely right. I think is when you are trying to blend groups sometimes, when it works out well, it is so good. And it's like, well, both of these people enjoy me. Like, of course, if I brought them together, it's even better. No,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. And I am actually a proponent of I don't go on vacation with coworkers unless it's a work trip or that coworker has truly transitioned to a friend in my life, my like a personal friend of mine. Just because there's so much more sharing of space, time, energy, all those things. So that's
Mhm.
where I try to be thoughtful and make sure that I'm drawing the line. But I had to learn actually through understanding why sometimes I might be invited on certain group trips and not others. And
Yeah.
then also when I really had to think about in my own life, I would invite certain friends to some trips and some to others. And once I removed a bit of my ego, right, and thinking I should be able to go to everything, I also had to realize we're thinking about the broader experience of the group of people. And is everyone going to get along? Are there going to be alignments? And where you know there may be glaringly different either points of views, values, whatever those things may be,
Yeah.
that are going to be those igniters, right? That set people ablaze and get them talking, get them going. Then that might
Yeah,
be a
like
trip you might want to
like
separate.
yeah, like you're going through a test, kind of like of loyalty between that relationship, that work relationship, let's say
Hmm.
that associate, and then that friend. You feel like you just want that childhood friend. You just want that entire trip to be so fun, like the way that you played together when you were 9 years old.
Yes,
And sometimes that's not going to quite work out that way under
it's
those
not.
dynamics.
Yeah, and it's hard too because sometimes the friend who's known you from, when you were knee high, they know a
Hmm.
certain version of you. Your other person knows this other version of you, and oftentimes they are competing, right? To your point of
Yeah.
loyalty,
That's
one may feel
interesting.
as though,
There's a
hey,
competition.
there's
Yes.
competition, and that's
Yes.
and that's where it can get to be a challenge sometimes because you can I am the same person, but I operate and connect with this person in a different way through these experiences, and we have different experiences, but they don't have anything that unites them outside of
Of you. Of you.
right,
You're the common thread.
right.
And it's interesting when you're thinking about all this stuff, when somebody's asking you to go away, you almost feel like if you say no, you might even lose that friendship forever because
Mhm,
that person so much wants to spend the time with you.
right.
And sometimes spending time with that person, and as you've grown through the lifespan, it may have been a decade or two that you really
Mhm.
spent this amount of time. And you're almost thinking to yourself, well, if I say no, I may end up losing this relationship forever. And that's kind of a scary thing too.
That is scary, but I do think there is a certain level of honesty that comes with knowing that a certain trip may not be the right one for you, right? And it could
Mhm.
be because of your own time, energy, or resources, right? And no one wants to go on a trip where someone is coming that just the thought of being on the trip is already stressing them out. Would have rather
Yeah.
you had stayed home. But I
Yeah.
think on that other end, being able to be very honest and strategic because there is some strategy. I think about it the same way when you plan a wedding and you're figuring out who's sitting at what table and these people can't be with these people because
Oh
they
my
have
goodness. Yes. You
right.
have to have the right people sitting right next to each other. If you don't, and you worry about that for months
Exactly.
in
It to me
advance, like
it's
a
very
trip. Same
similar.
deal.
Yeah, same deal, same deal. It's just about knowing, what you think will have the best possibility of working. And at the end of the day, the people are people, and you do your best to be a support. But I think if you start out with the right intentions, the clear communication, clear expectations, and I'm always a fan of asking who is all going because that may also allow
Oh,
for
I
me
have to
a
go. There. because I play in my mind, and this may sound a little strange, but I play in my mind the interactions I have with that particular person the last time I was with them.
Yes.
And I just go through that process. And if it wasn't a positive experience, I'm thinking to myself, oh, I don't want to do this.
You know, and because here's the thing with that too, right? As you sit around, you're breaking bread with someone. To me, that is a way to connect with someone. So I want to do it with people who bring me positive energy. Let's say that, right? To where I don't feel stressed with them. But if you're around the table, you're having your glass of wine, or you're like me and you had your margarita, you might be too in, your mouth might get a little bit loose, right? And then you start saying
Yeah,
something that you didn't plan on.
this girl. Yeah. Yep,
But
that's
yeah,
for darn sure. I start yeah, I change a little bit. I try to be the same person all the time, no
but
matter
you do
where I am, because I
relax.
don't like phony people. I don't like people who put on airs because especially during a time like this, when
Mhm.
you're vacationing or traveling with other people, even if it's a business trip and you're
Yeah.
going away for an extended period of time, it's really important that you understand the dynamics because sometimes you may step over that line and then you kind of almost have to retract a little
Right.
bit
Right.
so that you can save face because you don't want this to be a resentment machine. You don't want
Yes.
this to turn into something that next thing you know, it's friction when you wake up in the morning. It's friction
Mhm.
when you go out to dinner. It's friction when you go out on that excursion. You have to
It's
go
made
kind of
into
well.
the broader group chats that you're not in, and everyone knows what happened at dinner now, and you're unsure of who may be,
Right.
placing a bit of judgment or shocked by the behavior, you know?
So tools to do this. I think one of the things that you can use, and we talked about something like this about sometime a short get together like what we do
Mhm.
virtually, you get together and you can meet people. That would be a good way to do an introduction so that when people meet, that they're
Yeah.
not totally strangers.
That I think, a pre-introduction where you can. I think even more than that, I'm probably not a fan of having people go on an extended vacation too far out, sight unseen, or, not connected, unless it's a situation to where, yes, everyone is going, but everyone is still kind of breaking off in their own pods, or we can kind of do,
Yeah,
different things. Would be sort of my game plan, but I also think about it's really key to understand what do people want? Like, what style of trip are we going on? Like, if it's
right,
that more adventurous or if it's going to be
right.
that more relaxed or a balance of both.
Yeah, you have to plan things that are safe.
Yes,
You have to make sure that where you're going, you're not going into a dangerous area, one
sure.
that's gonna be safe for all people. I think
Hmm.
that's important, and having these shared meals that you're gonna do on, your budget that's mutually agreed
Hmm.
upon. You may have that one-off where you have that high-end dinner or that low-end dinner, that tuna can
Hmm.
experience where you're doing something along I've tra believe me, I've traveled with people, and they bring cans of tuna with them. I know that's true. But
Cans of tuna
the
is a hat.
excursions
Yeah.
to make
Hmm.
sure, for instance, some of these excursions and you may get an Uber somewhere, for your meeting place, let's say, with your tour guide, and then you're walking 5
Right.
miles.
Right. Those are all things to be aware of, right? Because I may be okay footing the bill, right? Maybe if it's one night, I want to treat my girlfriends to a nice dinner and I don't care
Yeah.
what the cost is. And I'm going to own that responsibility because I want to provide that experience. But I also think just being able to have trust, right? To me, that's the underpin. I have to trust the people who I'm going on vacation with to know that at a very basic human level, you're going to be looking out for me. You're not going to let anything happen to me. I'm not going to be stranded anywhere. There's going to be a base level of care and concern. And I would say if you don't have that, then it's probably not a trip to go on. And I think to
Mhm.
your point, right, if we can do a Zoom introduction, if I can get to know you a little bit, a group call, whatever that may be, helps to just create that sense of community, which you are excellent at creating and doing. I think it goes a long way to make a difference, and especially come with good intentions. That goes a long
Right,
way. Come with the
right.
spirit of wanting to have a good time.
Yeah, that compatibility check. Whether you're talking about the food, you're talking about the budget, you're talking about sleeping, you're talking about the types of a diet and
Mhm.
restrictions, that social energy. Some people need to go off into their own space. They need to take their book and they
Yep.
need to go off into their own space. And those are the type of things that I think we all need to announce as we're
Oh,
talking
yes.
and planning the trip. Say, hey, I like to start out my day this. Me, I'm the type of person I'm getting up in the morning. I'm getting things moving. I'm getting the coffee pot going. That way I don't have to wait on somebody else to make the
Yep.
coffee. So I'm one of those people that I want to make sure certain things are in place for everyone. But other people, they kind of want to sleep in and that's okay too.
Right. And as long as I know, right? Because if I know that you like to sleep in, then I won't come banging on your door saying, "Hey, coffee and croissants are ready. Let's go." And that's not what motivates you early in the morning. I like you. I'm probably up. I might have went to the gym or went out and got a walk if I can get out and get some fresh air or something. That's how I like to start and then come back and figure out, okay, what's the plan? What are we moving into next? So I think
So
what we keep circling back to is the importance of clearly communicating what you want, and then, my own little tease of also saying what you don't want. If you know you don't want to do fancy dinners, allow the group to go have that fancy dinner experience. And if you want to stay in the room or, in the villa and do something different, that is okay as well. And each group should be able to have that particular type of experience. No
and
one
then
should
plan
feel
your
forced.
wardrobe accordingly too. That's really
Yes.
important too, because
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're traveling in a suitcase, or some people are traveling out of backpacks and those people amaze me that they
Bless
had.
them because I haven't gotten that good yet. I'm still trying to
Oh my
get just
god,
to
some of these
carry
people,
on.
the way they put together their wardrobe is just amazing. I had to have my daughter Lindsay actually help me with one, and I still took 10 pairs of shoes.
My
But if during the planning phase, you find when you're doing all of this, when you're
Mhm.
talking all those things, and you find that you're a 10 or you're a 2, and then some of the partners might be just the opposite, you're one extreme to another, probably not a good idea to proceed.
Right.
Wouldn't you
And
say?
sometimes you have to go on the vacation and you learn that, right? And you
Yeah.
learn that those just may not be your vacation buddies for a experience, but those may be your in town. We have an amazing experience. It doesn't have to be all of everything and for all parts of your life. But I think being able to recognize who you can vacation with and it feels good, especially if you're in any sort of couple or partnership and having another couple or people that you can go out with, or that's why I love
Right.
some of these like travel groups where they're connected based on common interests is great because you have people who are aligned with your travel style and you guys it just reduces a lot of the chaos that can pop up sometimes.
Well, interestingly enough, these trips, like you said, it depends on the dynamics of the parties. Or is it a bunch of single ladies?
Mhm.
Or they're couples? The dynamics are going to be different, and sometimes it's easier to mix depending on those personalities of
Agreed.
who is attending for this trip, whether it's a short term or long term. But I think just considering the meetup ahead of time, whether you're doing a virtual one, people travel from different parts of the country and they're going to a destination. And sometimes they don't physically meet until till then, or they haven't
Mhm.
been in each other's company for quite a long period of time. And that's almost part of the fun of it all is just reconnecting with other
Yeah.
ones. But if there's issues that come along, sometimes it's best to say, "We agree to disagree." You and I have talked about that before.
Absolutely. The power of acknowledging that we just see things differently on a particular issue is a
Mhm.
great way just to acknowledge it and move on. No one we don't have to argue to figure out who's right because while we're doing that, we're losing time on creating experiences. And I think one great resource too, right? We talked about sort of that meeting is also there's so many resources online for like a checklist, right? Of things to think about or things to ask people who are going on vacation with you because we do have a population of people who experience life differently, right? So, what can we also do to make sure that everyone is feeling comfortable and supported and getting what they need? And for those who aren't maybe as bold or boisterous as we may be, how are we creating an opportunity for them to share some of that feedback? So, that's just, my
Sometimes
perspective.
rein it back in, you know that, Quincy? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I gotta rein it in, and I gotta remember to let, even though I might have planned the itinerary, even though I might have been the one who was really driving and putting everything together, I still have to realize this is their vacation too, or
Absolutely.
this is their experience as well. And I need to pull it back a little bit so from time to time they can lead and so that
Mm,
they feel like they're an integral part. The last thing you want to do is have people, when you're all sharing the expenses, you're all experiencing the same accommodations and sharing your time and energies with each other. You want to make sure that people are not on the defensive, that
right.
people are coming together, and you want people to feel as good and warm with each
Mm,
other. You want to have that experience, that ultimate experience, because at the end of the day, when this trip is all over, just to kind of like think about what you did, where you went, the foods that you ate, the laughter that you shared, that is going to last a lifetime.
yeah. Those memories, those laughs, like sometimes, you could think of vacation, you can smell the different
Yep.
smells of the different places. So all those things, I think if we can do what we can to create positive imprints of those is really, really beneficial because who also wants to come back and say you had this horrible vacation, especially when they were things that are within your control, right? As much as you can sort of inspire other
As
people.
much as
But
you
if
can control it, and
as
that's
much as
another
you can
thing, is being
control, but,
careful how much you are controlling. Well,
setting
Quincy,
yourself up for
another
success.
exciting time talking about vacations or just
And
getting
welcome
together with other
back.
people and traveling, whatever you're doing. Summertime is here. We
Yes.
have lots of opportunities. I'm sure people will be traveling near and far.
Oh,
Please
yeah.
be safe. That's
Yeah.
another one, to make sure that you're safe as you're traveling, in addition to preparing and taking the right shoes for your
Oh, yeah.
itinerary as you're traveling together. Please be safe as you go out there. And most importantly, thank you all so much for joining LaQuincia Nichols and myself, Barbara Ringrose, right here at Optimize Her 2 Live. And we'll see you next week. That's Tuesday. We'll be on from 7 to 7:30 next week. And we can't wait to have another opportunity to share some important stuff with you.
It's gonna be good. You don't wanna miss it.
Please remember, like, share.
Share, subscribe, hype, send us to a friend. Don't be selfish with us. Send us to all your people.
Yeah, do not. All right. Thanks again,
Excellent.
everyone, for joining us here at Optimize Her Too. Quincy, thank you as always. And stay.
My pleasure. You take care.
All right. Bye, honey.
Bye.